This presentation looks at price elasticity of supply. The ratio price elasticity of supply looks at the percentage change in quantity supplied of a product given a percentage change in its price. It's a measure of how responsive a supplier or firm can be to a change in the price of the product. What factors determine the change in responsiveness of a producer? Well, here are two supply curves, one of which is relatively inelastic and the other is much more elastic. We can see in the first that when the price changes by quite a lot from P0 to P1, the producer does not change their quantity very much at all. Clearly, when prices go up, producers will want to produce more because they are profit maximizers. But in this case, the producer does not change their quantity, perhaps because they can't. There are factors making this supply curve inelastic. On the other hand, here, when the price changes even by a small amount, from P0 to P1, the producer is able to increase the quantity supplied by a fairly large amount, from Q0 to Q1. This supply curve, therefore, is much more elastic. So we will have to examine why some supply curves are inelastic while others are much more elastic. In other words, what determines the price elasticity of supply? Let's look at three factors that may have an influence on the price elasticity of supply. The first is the availability of raw materials. All goods and services require raw materials such as land, labor, and capital for their production. If these raw materials are easily available, then as soon as the price of the product goes up, the supplier will be able to respond by increasing the quantity. But if these raw materials are not available or not available quickly, then the supply curve will be much more inelastic. As well as raw materials, producers need spare capacity. So, if the factory in which the goods are being produced has lots of spare capacity, in other words, it may only be running at, shall we say, 70% of its full capacity, then any increase in the price will lead to a rapid increase in quantity supplied. But if the factory is already running at 90% of its full capacity, then the supply curve will be much more inelastic because the factory simply can't produce any more, even when the price goes up. Thirdly, the factor that we must consider is time. We know that in economics there are two time frames, short run and long run. Therefore, if we give the producer enough time, they can increase their factory capacity by even building a second factory, which they will do if the price of the good stays high enough. And this will allow them to increase the quantity supplied in response to a change in price in the long run. So there are three factors to consider when judging how price elastic the supply curve will be. First, the availability of raw materials. Second, the existence of spare capacity. And third, time.